What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today we're going over my top 50 rankings and tiers. Definitely going to be a long one, so grab something to eat, sit back, hit the like button, and let's just start with the S tier. So the top 3 players this season, pretty much no matter what the format, maybe it changes in Superflex, maybe it changes in tight end premium, but it's Christian McCaffrey, it's Justin Jefferson, and it's Ja'Marr Chase. Now, whatever order you want to kind of put them in, I'm definitely fine with. I do think Ja'Marr Chase should definitely be like third on this list, or at least behind Justin Jefferson. But, you know, if you're someone who really likes to start off wide receiver heavy and you want to start off with Justin Jefferson at 1, go for it. You want to take Chase 2, go for it. That's actually how I have the underdog specific rankings. This video is strictly for redraft leagues. This is half PPR scoring redraft leagues. But again, maybe you like starting off hero RB and you want to go with McCaffrey. That really just depends. Do the mock drafts, see how you like your teams. I think teams turn out a little bit better doing McCaffrey first, then hammering other positions after that in a hero RB build. Allows you a lot of time to also get that second running back at the best value. But I do not care. If you prefer even Ja'Marr Chase at the 101, these 3 are pretty clearly the 3 best players in fantasy. I would lean on them over everyone else, and I really wouldn't be against any order that you want. After that, I think a lot of what comes up next is definitely also up for debate. I have Austin Ekeler next, and then I have Bijan Robinson right after him. I do like this pairing, Ekeler, then Bijan. We know, just like with 100% certainty, Ekeler is going to have receptions, going to score touchdowns. It's going to be a very good offense. Like he's bust proof unless he gets hurt. And those are the running backs we want in the first round. You can say pretty much the same thing about Bijan, but just a little bit less certainty around the offense. Everything else might be the same, but maybe the offense doesn't kind of reach Chargers level touchdowns, which, kind of hurts touchdown upside a little bit, but still love Bijan. I think what people are really going to debate is where you want to throw in Tyreek Hill down here, where you want to throw in this next grouping here. So I have Ekeler, then Bijan, then the duo of Cooper, Kupp, and Tyreek Hill. And that is again going to come down to draft strategy. Do you prefer taking that wide receiver in round 1 and maybe you have Cooper, Kupp at 4, or maybe Tyreek Hill even at 5? I did a mock draft the other day where honestly, it went Jefferson, Chase, Kupp, Tyreek. Like the first 4 players were all wide receivers. Comes down to strategy, but I like Ekeler over Bijan. I like Kupp over Tyreek Hill. I know Tyreek Hill came out and said that he wants 2,000 yards this season, but Cooper Kupp almost did that, right? He was 53 yards away from doing it, something around those lines. He's going to be the focal point of that offense. I think I like Cooper Kupp a little bit more than Tyreek Hill, but another one where if you wanted to flip-flop them, you definitely could. Ending this tier, also, I just want to shout out, if you're looking at the tiers over here, these numbers below the tiers indicate the ranking. So right now we're in A tier, is the second tier behind S tier. We're at 104 through 108. So the 4th pick in round 1 through the 8th pick in round 1, just so you can kind of reference where people are going in the draft instead of counting off everything. Kelce ends this, and this is, again, how do you prefer your teams when you take tight end? For me, I have him here because I like how my teams turn out when I take these top 7 players first, and then I don't have the tight end yet. I prefer maybe going with Tyreek Hill and then Hockenson, Tyreek Hill, and then a Dallas Goedert, David Njoku, maybe someone like Evan Ingram a little bit later, Darren Waller, targeting those players instead of going Kelce and then the wide receiver in that range. So do mock drafts, see how your teams turn out, see what you prefer as far as that situation. But I think that there's no way I would end up taking everyone in B tier on ahead of Kelce. So these top 7, then I start looking at Kelce. I don't want to move him a little bit higher. I just don't like the value as much. Next up, we've got Jonathan Taylor, and it's definitely going to take me a second to find some of these names down here because there are so many names in the top 50. But Jonathan Taylor, I used to, so maybe like 2-3 weeks ago, I posted the video, JT versus Saquon versus someone else. I think it was Bijan, but Bijan was clearly ahead of them. And I had Saquon at the top. I've now flipped that ranking, so we'll throw up Saquon Barkley here. He's the next player, just because of the contract situation. I still have concerns about Jonathan Taylor in that offense, just his rushing upside. If Anthony Richardson's going to take a lot of carries and also take plenty of goal line opportunities, I question the touchdown upside for Taylor. So if we see Barkley sign a new contract, I'll put Barkley back over Taylor. It's just getting a little bit, a little bit scary. Like, I'm not super concerned right now. I think he's still going to play this season, but could Barkley hold out trying to get a new contract? Maybe. And that possibility just has me a little bit concerned, just saying I want him behind Jonathan Taylor. After that, it's Stefon Diggs. I think, I guess we only have the one tier here. I think people are going to question this one a little bit, thinking maybe Diggs deserves to be in A tier. I think a little bit behind these players. Obviously going to have a very good season. The Bills are going to be very good on offense. Maybe even has a little bit more upside now that potentially Josh Allen not going to run this as much. I just prefer Stefon Diggs more in that late first round range. I think the ceiling of Cooper Kupp, of Tyreek Hill, of Travis Kelce, if he's really going to hit his ceiling, the value that provides is a little bit better than the value of Diggs hitting his ceiling. I think his ceiling is just a little bit lower. Like, I don't think Diggs has 2,000 yards in his range of outcomes, whereas Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill do. So I think they really are in a tier of their own. If you wanted to put them ahead of JT, of Saquon, again, comes down to how you prefer that first round, setting up the rest of your draft. Next up, Nick Chubb. He has an unreal ceiling this season. Like, they're going to throw the ball more, and maybe people view that as a negative for Nick Chubb, but he's going to get his touches. I've said before, even if they lean more pass heavy, he'll just get a higher percentage of the carries. So monster upside. If their offense is as good as they're kind of indicating that it is, like beat reporters are saying, it's clicking right now in camp. Now we have a ton of time to go in camp. It could unclick, or they could kind of just be hyping him up a little bit. But given the talent this offense has, the touchdown upside for Nick Chubb, he could score 20 touchdowns. He could be a true league winner this season. I really don't see a path to him busting unless he gets hurt, which is exactly what we want for players this early. After that, people don't like Davante Adams a lot this season, but I do. The Jimmy G situation hurts, and if Jimmy G is not going to be the quarterback, that's definitely not good for Davante Adams, and is definitely going to lower his floor, lower his ceiling. But he's still, inarguably a top 3 wide receiver in the league. He still has so much upside, and the overwhelmingly likely situation here, the overwhelmingly likely outcome is that Jimmy G is going to be the starting quarterback for this team. And I think the market and everyone is kind of being oh, it's 50-50, they put that, clause in his contract because they think he's not going to play. Everything they've said and everything indicates he's going to be the starting quarterback, and they are not concerned that he is not going to be. And if that's the case, you're getting a really good discount on Adams, many times in the early second round to either pair with someone like a Tyreek Hill or a Stefon Diggs or a Travis Kelce, or to go with, potential league-winning running back like Saquon, like Nick Chubb. So a phenomenal pick. I'm definitely still drafting him. Again, I think the most likely outcome is Jimmy G's starting quarterback, and people are not drafting like that. Next up, Tony Pollard in the same tier. Very possible they sign someone. I'm still not convinced that he will be, just basically him and Keyshawn Vaughn as the only 2 running backs on this roster that are good. They still have Ronald Jones, but are good. I think they're going to bring someone else in, and if that happens, I could see him moving down either to the end of this tier or maybe even in to C tier. But he's here because if they don't do that, well, he's probably not going to finish here in the rankings. He's probably going to move up ahead of Nick Chubb, maybe ahead of Stefon Diggs. He would be well worth a first-round pick if you knew he was the only running back ahead of Vaughn. Is that going to happen? We'll see. Again, I'm a little skeptical, but I think right here it gives him a good average outcome. Still has the ceiling, but takes into account that you can't take him in the first round right now because if they bring someone else in, that's really going to hurt. After him, a little bit of concerns with Josh Jacobs. The reason I still have him this high is because there's just nothing behind him. Like, they have not been hyping up the backups at all, basically saying that they're not performing very well. It is very clearly Josh Jacobs as the obvious first, second, and third down running back on this team. The only concern is the contract. Is he going to sign the franchise tag? Are they going to get a long-term deal done? If that happens, just like with Pollard, it's like if we're locked in to him in this role, maybe moving up, but this is a really good spot to be drafting him because there's just no one. There's no one behind him. Now, I brought up the concerns with the offense. If the offense is bad, like he does not perform very well in games that they lose. He really needs them to get up, to be establishing that run in the second half, to really be leaning on him, especially near the goal line. When they're down and they're throwing it, he doesn't play as well, but just so safe because he's very, very talented and there's no one behind him that they trust. Second to last player in this tier, A.J. Brown. Pretty much just going to put him here because this is basically where he was valued at last season. When you look at like value at the end of the season, not much has changed. It's the same skill players on offense. They brought in Olamide Zaccheaus, but he's just really fighting with Quez Watkins for that number 3 spot. There's nothing changing. Like, this is going to be a very, very, very similar offense to last season. His target share, his efficiency should be very similar, so he should be drafted very close to where he ranked last season. Then finally, CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, got a lot of upside in this Dallas offense. It's a lot of the same things you can say about A.J. Brown. The offense is going to look very similar for Dallas. There'll be slight changes. They might try and get the ball a little bit quicker, a little bit more short passes. That's really not going to change the value of CeeDee Lamb. Like, maybe his catch rate goes up and his yards per reception goes down a little bit, but it kind of even outs at pretty much the same thing. He's going to be a wide receiver 1. He's going to be very good. Do I think he can compete with Jefferson, Chase, Kupp, Hill? No, that's why he's in this next tier. Could he finish ahead of them? Absolutely. Any of them could miss a few games, get unlucky with touchdowns, but he deserves to be in this tier a little bit below, but definitely ahead of the C tier. As we move into C tier, we start to get a little bit of concerns with some players. Like, everyone we've talked about so far, it's maybe this little thing, or maybe they bring someone else in, but for the most part, even in their worst case outcomes, they're going to be very good. Every single tier we decrease right now just kind of adds a little bit more risk, maybe lowers the upside just a little bit. I think a lot of that is coming true with Derrick Henry. Definite risk that, let's say, the Titans offense is just trash. They could be very bad this season. Tyjae Spears, I think, is really good. I think they actually want to use him on some third downs, use him on early downs, maybe even to keep Henry fresh, keep him healthy, not have him having 25, 27 carries, in these games that they're winning, kind of have him closer to maybe 20. That hurts his ceiling. That hurts his floor if he's not getting those receptions. And then again, if the Titans stink, if the touchdowns are down, if they're not winning as much, that's bad news for Henry. So I still like him as a player, like the upside, have not been drafting a ton of him. Garrett Wilson up next. I could see the argument for him ahead of Henry to lead this tier, and I could definitely see the argument for him at the end of B tier. Projections-wise, he comes out just a little behind it. Part of that could be because I envision, the Jets being a really good offense this season, him leading that team, having great numbers, but also that, they're going to be winning a decent amount of games. Rodgers historically plays relatively slow. If the plays are down because they're up in second half and running it, maybe we don't see, the passing numbers hit their true ceiling for the Jets this season. But regardless, he's going to be a stud. He's already one of the best wide receivers in football. He's going to take that next step this season. He's going to be really good. I would say the Henry Wilson here comes down to, what do you need? If you've already drafted Austin Ekeler, there's no real need to draft Derrick Henry. Just keep going with a hero RB build. If you maybe haven't gone with running back yet and you get to this pick and you're looking at Henry, maybe that's the lean there. But no problems with Garrett Wilson. He's going to be awesome this season. Right behind him is his teammate, and this one definitely depends on reports when we get to like real camps. I have no concerns that Breece Hall will not get to 100% this season. The question is, when does that happen? Does that happen in week 10, week 5, week 1? His ranking is going to depend on that, and we just don't know the answer right now. We'll learn a lot more in July, a lot more in August as we get really close. If he's going to be 100% to start the season, I could see moving him to the beginning of this tier, even into B tier. But I have to have him here because it's kind of like with Tony Pollard. There is that downside risk that, for the Dallas, maybe they bring Zeke back. But for the Jets, that maybe Breece Hall isn't 100% in week 1. So I don't want to rank him too high. After this, we get our first quarterback off the board in Jalen Hurts. I have Hurts first. I believe ADP has Mahomes first and maybe even Hurts third. I'll put on the screen at the top what positional ADPs are right now. But I have Hurts first just because, he had 13 rushing touchdowns last season. He has the upside to go for 15 this season. When you're adding in basically a rushing touchdown per game, the upside to go for 102 touchdowns on the ground in any week, still plenty of upside through the air. He's basically bust proof. There's going to be a few games this season where maybe they score 4 or 5 touchdowns, but all of them come on the ground and he only has 1. And that's how he hits his floor because they're running it a ton in the second half and he's not the one running it. But in so many games, they're going to be scoring around 30 points a game. He's going to have, 4 or 5 touchdown upside and if fields come on the ground, he can drop 40. And anyone capable of that with as much consistency and as much confidence we have in this offense, I have him as the first quarterback. After him, we've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Little bit of, so some people will be like, oh, don't rank him this high because Jameson Williams, suspended for the first 6 games, but going to come back, maybe he eats into that production. There has been, some reports that even without pads, Jameson Williams is kind of up and down with consistency. He's had some great plays, great catches, but struggling with drops, struggling with a little bit consistency in route running. I think he'll fix that eventually, but for someone who's also not going to play in the first 6 games, who, had the 2 huge plays last season, but also was highly inefficient trying to get him the ball. Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably going to be by far their most targeted player. Very, very consistent in fantasy. He has incredible upside going into year 3. He's just so safe, so much upside. He's just an amazing pick to make in the back half of the second round because in what situation does he bust? He basically needs to either get hurt or have Goff get injured, but there's just no way that Jameson Williams comes in week 7 is all of a sudden being a target hog. That's just not going to happen. They're going to specifically design him plays on screen passes, end arounds, deep downfield, but it's St. Brown. St. Brown's going to be a target hog. He's going to be awesome. No problem drafting him. I've drafted a ton of him so far. Next up, Rhamondre Stevenson. I have pumped the brakes a little bit on Stevenson in the past few weeks. They definitely want Ty Montgomery to mix in on third downs. We know that basically it's they have backups and they know Stevenson's the guy, but they don't want to give him a billion touches a game, have him get hurt because he's the offense right now. And so when they give him a break, it's well, the backups are pretty good in the receiving game. We look at Pierre Strong, we look at Ty Montgomery, the 2 most likely backups. And so they can give him breaks on, times when they're down, they're going to bring in those other backs for pass catching abilities, third downs. Those are the best times for fantasy. Those are when you want Stevenson on the field. And so if there's a chance he's losing some of those, losing third down snaps, that's not great. And then you look at, it's the Patriots are not going to be a good offense this season. And so that hurts his upside as well. But I will not deny that he could definitely go out there in week 1, play 80% of the snaps. And we're that was overblown. The Pierre Strong getting third down snaps, Ty Montgomery mixing in was overblown. He's a featured back. And, he ends up being a top 5 running back. That is definitely possible. I just think they're going to mix in these other backs on third downs, which will limit his upside. After him, someone I am very, very overweight on right now on Underdog, someone that I have ranked well ahead of ADP is Jahmyr Gibbs. I just don't know how to rank him lower. Right now, I am not only under projecting what I think Detroit's going to do because if I put where I think they're actually going to be on offense, you have to draft all of them, basically. I am under projecting Gibbs' role in the receiving game, under projecting how many carries I think he's going to get. Like, I think he should be going higher than this, to be honest. But there's no reason to actually do that because his ADP is more, honestly, in like round 4, like down here is where his ADP is. And so there's no reason to be like, 2 rounds above ADP. But just like, how does he not work out? This is the best backfield for fantasy production in Detroit. Detroit running backs are going to dominate in fantasy. He's better than Swift. He's obviously better than Jamal Williams. Like, he is going to be a featured weapon on this offense. They're going to use him everywhere. He'll get carries. He'll be designed plays in the red zone, designed receptions. Like, he's going to be so good. Such a featured weapon. Phenomenal pick this season. Mark Andrews up next in this tier. Another phenomenal pick. Like, I am absolutely in love with both of these players. I think the Baltimore offense I want to be overweight on. I don't think people are fully understanding how bad they were last year because of all the injuries. They were not scoring. They were not running plays. Both of those are going to go way up. They're going to pass the ball a lot more. Like, Mark Andrews could legitimately finish as the number 1 tight end. And that's incredibly valuable to have someone who's capable of 1,300 receiving yards, capable of 10, 12 touchdowns as a tight end. That's a huge weekly advantage. I love him this season. I don't see much downside risk. He had an awful year last year, and he was still, 3rd or 4th in points per game. Like, he's going to be so good, so safe. And he goes in a range where you're right at the end of these, running backs and wide receivers that are just locks to be really good. He's such a good pick. He's such a good pick this season. Mahomes up next, who again, I said, I'll put it on the screen. I'm pretty sure he's number 1 by ADP. So I haven't been getting him much because if I have, I have Jalen Hurts ranked like a good amount ahead of him. But if Jalen Hurts also goes later, I figure why not just wait, grab Hurts a little bit after where Mahomes is going. But I would say the top 3, Hurts, Mahomes, Allen. If you can get them in the mid-3rd round, that's awesome. I don't even care which one you end up with. Again, my ranking is going to be Hurts, then Mahomes, then Allen. But I have no problem. Just take the one that you like the most. Whoever becomes of value in your draft, take them. You don't need a breakdown on Patrick Mahomes. He's very good at football. Final player in this tier, Chris Olave. I did an in-depth breakdown on him versus Devonta Smith versus T. Higgins about a week ago. Check that video out if you want a full take. But he is incredible. He is being underrated because of how good Garrett Wilson was and because he missed effectively 3 games last season. If he'd been fully healthy, he would have been the rookie of the year. He is incredible. He will be the wide receiver 1 on this team. He will be good in fantasy. I am very confident in that. Whenever you can get him in round 3, absolutely do it. D tier. We are starting now definitely to get into the players that I have some level of concern with. Start off with Najee. I have not been drafting much Najee because he needs volume. If he gets the volume, he can be very good in fantasy. But Jalen Warren was great last season. We now have back-to-back years of Najee Harris not being good, being very, very inefficient. And I understand he had the foot issue last season, but he was still inefficient after that. He's a good running back, don't get me wrong, but he needs volume. And if that ever goes away, it's just not something I want to invest, anywhere before like the late 3rd round, really. I mean, I have him at 304, but like realistically, if you're using rankings and you took him at 304, that meant, all of the first, 2 rounds and 3 picks all went perfectly. Like, the odds are, if he's a top player in the rankings, it's coming more at, 306, 307, 308. Odds are someone's going to reach a little bit into the rankings to take someone else. But yeah, I don't really draft him much because he goes honestly in like the early 3rd round, maybe even late 2nd sometimes. And I'm just not willing to invest that much draft capital in the lead back for an offense I don't think is going to be that good. After him, final quarterback in this like top tier of quarterback, Josh Allen. He's only in this tier just because he projects a little bit lower because I've decreased the rushing projection on him. They've said that they want to keep him healthier. Not that he's been like hurt, but basically they want him to be their long-term option at quarterback. And if he's trying to run over players every 3rd play, then, he's going to have a shorter career. Could that mean fewer rushing touchdowns, fewer games where he's got, 60, 70 rushing yards, multiple touchdowns, and really hits that ceiling? Yes. And so I think that I don't know. I think he's just pretty easily the third quarterback this season. I think I would put him down here into this tier, just capping that upside just a little bit. After him, someone that like I think I'm a little low on in the rankings, but I really, really, really like him as a player. I just can't find a way to project him too much higher than this because, like, well, Tyreek Hill is there. So I'm talking about Jaylen Waddle right now. Tyreek Hill is there. Tyreek Hill wants 2,000 yards. I think that's actually like in his range of outcomes this season. For Waddle, like, he's awesome, but like just having Tyreek Hill there makes it so he can't, be ranked at least among this B tier. When you isolate only Tua starts, only games Tua was actually starting healthy in that game, the average outcome for Jaylen Warren, if you like extrapolate that over a full season, and it was 10 games, so we're not taking like a 2-game sample, 95 receptions, over 1,500 yards, and 11 touchdowns. That is good enough to be a mid to low end wide receiver one in any season. A low end one if we have an awesome wide receiver year, a mid range one if it's a little bit of a lower end season. But like, it's tough to rank him higher because he has Tyreek Hill there. But it's like Tyreek Hill was there last season. Tyreek Hill was fully healthy, I believe, in every single game. So he was there, and Waddle still had that production with Tua healthy. Hopefully Tua can stay healthy this season. I think maybe that's also part of what's having me rank him a little bit lower. But like if Waddle ever becomes a top player in the rankings, please take him. Like I have no concerns about the talent. He's an awesome player. It's really just can Tua stay healthy and support both of these players? I really think he can. Final two players in this tier are going to be T. Higgins and Devonta Smith. Again, I went over like a full video breaking down Chris Olave versus T. Higgins versus Devonta Smith a week ago. So check that out. If you want an in-depth, like 15-minute breakdown on those three players. I just think T. Higgins, I have a little bit ahead of Devonta Smith because I think people underrate how good Higgins has been because he has a few games, not only the week 17 last season, but he has a few games where he played like 1 or 10 snaps, but was a decoy or really just like wasn't ever going to get a target. And they're looking at his points per game, making them lower than they actually were when he was healthy. When he's healthy, he's a very, very, very good player. I just like the potential upside of the Bengals passing offense a little bit more than the Eagles. E tier. Starting off with someone that I really just don't draft, and that's Travis Etienne. I loved him last season, and that worked out. He was great last season. This season, not as in love. Last year, they didn't really have a backup they trusted. That was good. Obviously, like they're not going to trust backups that aren't that good. This year, I think Tank Bigsby is good. I think he's good in the receiving game and on the ground. So I think he could eat into that early down production. He could eat into third down snaps. I think people view Etienne as some amazing pass catcher, but he showed us last season that he's not. He ran plenty of routes and was not commanding targets. He's not that great of a pass catcher. He's just super explosive. So the receiving numbers look great because he takes a few screen passes a long ways, which is great in fantasy, but it's like when the team's viewing it, he's not commanding targets. I think Tank Bigsby can command more targets than him. I think they'll use him more, and it's really going to hurt the ceiling of Etienne. I prefer to get my exposure to the Jaguars offense through Calvin Ridley, through Trevor Lawrence, and through Tank Bigsby, sometimes Evan Ingram as well, but mainly those three. I just think Etienne just goes too early for my liking. Similar, honestly, with DK Metcalf. Tough to say because one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's so awesome. I just view the addition of JSN as like a pretty big negative for everyone, really. It hurts the tight ends a ton. It hurts Lockett. Then it hurts Metcalf after that. So it impacts him the least, but it's what is the ceiling of DK Metcalf in terms of targets if Lockett is still a great wide receiver and now JSN is commanding a ton of targets on his own? The ceiling gets capped. And so I think his outcome, he can perform like he did last season, but can he jump into this range of Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave? I don't think so. I think those players have a pretty good edge over him now that JSN is on the team. I don't think the floor is really there. And I think if you think Metcalf also goes off, again, like I've said before, just take Geno. If you really think that this offense is just going to be insane, it's going to just support Metcalf also being incredible, just draft Geno Smith instead, and you're going to be right on that take. After him, someone I included in the, what was that, like must draft running backs, probably one of those videos like that. Miles Sanders. I love Miles Sanders this season, assuming they don't bring someone else in. Like, not going to be a good offense, but the volume is going to be so awesome with Miles Sanders. He'll have receptions. He'll get work near the goal line. He's going to get carries. Like, he's just going to be very, very safe for touches. And so even if the efficiency drops, which it will, he's just such a good player in such a good situation for touches that it's tough for him to bust. If they bring someone else in, like a free agent, obviously I'm going to drop him in the rankings. I don't think that's going to happen, though, given how much they paid him already. So really like him in this range, and he goes later than this, so you can get him in a good discount. After him, we're going to have Aaron Jones. I don't like Aaron Jones as much. I have him right around his ADP, so I'm not like way below. I just don't draft him that much. I typically lean towards a wide receiver when he's like the top running back on the board. And on Underdog, he goes in like right around that like 4-5 turn. And there's just such great wide receivers there. Sometimes quarterbacks fall, tight ends become a value. Like, there's always a reason I don't really want to draft Aaron Jones. And it's really just because like there's a lot of unknowns. How good's this offense going to be? Jordan Love, like, is he going to throw to running backs? That's my big thing, is like, we know that Aaron Rodgers is awesome throwing to running backs. He can really bring the best out of running backs in the receiving game. Can Jordan Love do that? I don't know. And if he can't, that's going to really hurt Aaron Jones, because we know also A.J. Dillon's stealing touches as well, will steal goal line touches. And if the offense isn't that good for total touchdowns, like, it just caps Aaron Jones a lot. After Aaron Jones, Deebo Samuel, someone that I think I might move up a little bit. Like, the more I think about it, it's like, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I'd rather Deebo than DK Metcalf. Like, I feel like in a draft, I have to take one of them. Like, Deebo Samuel, I just think is being undervalued this season. He knows he wasn't fantastic last year. He's come out and said like he's going to be better this season. But it's really just like Purdy. If Purdy can be 100% in week one, there's at least a chance this offense gets unlocked. Like, in recent seasons, they just have not figured out quarterback, and they finally figured it out with Purdy last year. If Purdy can take a step forward, can really master this offense, Ayuk, Deebo, Kittle, McCaffrey, they're going to be explosive, score a ton of touchdowns. Defenses will not have any idea what to do, and I think Purdy can truly unlock that like he did to close last season. And I think Deebo can be a really, really good weapon for this offense. And honestly, he falls. He falls in a lot of drafts. So I'd really like taking Deebo. Final player in the E tier, Joe Mixon. I think he goes later. I have him probably a half round ahead of ADP, maybe even a round ahead of ADP at times, depending on the site. I think he goes later just because people are, they heard over the offseason, oh, he could get cut. They'll draft another running back, Chris Brown, who could take over. He gets suspended for his incident. Like, I don't think any of that happens. If he gets suspended, it's like 2 games. And honestly, it doesn't even hurt you that much at his ADP. You can figure something else out for 2 games. They want him there. He wants to be there. It's going to be a great offense, great situation, great player. Like, there's not much else to say. He's probably going to shatter this ADP this season. F tier, starting off with another one of my favorite picks. If I miss out on Mark Andrews and, I want tight end in this range, Hockenson he's been my go-to. Like, I draft so much more Hockenson. Like, I don't have that much Kelce. We're going to talk about Kittle in a second. Don't have really any Kittle. I have a good amount of Andrews, but Hockenson, I've been drafting so much of him. If you look at the season-long pace for him on the Vikings in games where they didn't pull starters, remember that last week they started their starters for like a few snaps, but like then they ended up pulling him. You take that out, it was like 1 reception. He didn't play in that game. And then you add in his playoff game. So just the games he was playing for the Vikings in, having no camp, no time to prepare. Season-long pace, 117 receptions, 1,074 yards, 5 touchdowns. Like, he could pretty easily hit 100, 110. He could hit 120 receptions this season. He has league-winning upside. It's going to be a great offense, a very pass-heavy offense. Love it. I love drafting Hockenson where he's going right now. After him, Mattison. Same team, obviously, on the Vikings. Like I said before, going to be a great offense. Going to be pass heavy. We'll see what the split is there. This one really just comes down to Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride. Like, if one of them, can really do well in camp and become like even just like a 2, like a really solid 2, not even just a 1B, maybe I drop Mattison a little bit until we see that. Like, they're what, 5th fifth round second year player, seventh round rookie. Like, we don't even know if they're any good. And if they stink, like, Mattison is going to be effectively a featured back on a great offense, and he'll be a running back one. So it really comes down to how good Ty Chandler and Dwight Wright are. We won't know until we get back to like real practices in, I believe that starts up in like July, but you know, in a few weeks when like the pads go on, when we're actually getting real practices, like we'll see. But I think this is where Mattison deserves to be until that time. Next up, Calvin Ridley. Like I said, I prefer to get my exposure through Ridley on this offense than through Travis Etienne. Some people are concerned with how much time he has been away from football, but Trevor Lawrence is awesome. This offense is going to be great. Like, Zay Jones was producing great last season. I promise you, Calvin Ridley's better than Zay Jones. He's better than Marvin Jones. Like, he's a great wide receiver. He didn't forget how to play football. He's going to be awesome. I really don't have that many concerns with Calvin Ridley. Another player, not many concerns, J.K. Dobbins. I love Baltimore. I think the Baltimore offense is going to be incredible this season. I think they're going to score a ton of touchdowns. Yeah, I think they'll throw the ball more, but maybe that increases the reception upside of Dobbins, who's their best receiving back. He's going to be really good. He's going to look 100%. Dude looked like 40% when he returned last season. He did not look healthy, and he was still, really, really efficient. I'm just all in. I'm all in on the Baltimore offense. I want the running back one in Dobbins. Final player in F tier is Amari Cooper. I draft way more Elijah Moore than Amari Cooper. I like Elijah Moore more because he goes rounds later. Like, he goes in like the 8th round on underdog, which means in a redraft league, he probably goes more in like the 9th or even the 10th round. That is way better value. I think there's a world where Elijah Moore is their wide receiver one this season. But like, there's room to go around. It's going to be a very pass-heavy offense, a very high upside offense, just a very, 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 very good offense that you're going to want pass catchers on. So Amari Cooper, a great pick in this range. G tier, final tier, the final 7 players in the top 50. We're going to start off with Ken Walker, someone I just don't really draft. People have been hating on that decision all off season up till now. I've had him well behind ADP. People have not liked that. Listen, he was not that good of a pass catcher last season. You can't just look at the totals, because there were games where he was literally the only healthy running back. They had to use him in the receiving game, and he still wasn't that good at it. Kenny McIntosh is a better receiving back and will make the team. Zach Charbonnet is a better receiving back, will obviously make the team, and will push not only for third down snaps, but for early down snaps. I have Ken Walker here. Here's the big thing. I have Ken Walker ranked down here, even projecting him for over 1,000 rushing yards. Like, I still have him as their clear lead back on the ground, scoring plenty of touchdowns, but he doesn't have reception upside. When you add in JSN and 2 better running backs in the receiving game, he does not have reception upside, and that kills him in fantasy. Going to be great on the ground, but let's be honest, I was pumped about Charbonnet in the pre-draft process. I thought he was a very, very good running back. Very unfortunate he lands in this situation, but there is a world where they are effectively even in touches, and that is very bad news for people who want to draft Ken Walker. I have seen in the comment section, you guys want to take him in the 3rd round. That is not great. You should not be taking him that early. Next up, Joe Burrow. Someone who could definitely challenge for this top 3, entering the top 3 next season. He could honestly lead league in passing. Like, he could be, having the most passing touchdowns, most passing yards in the NFL this season. They're just such a good passing offense. We'll see what Irv Smith does. Maybe that adds another component to that passing offense. But like, there's just nothing really to say. The Bengals are going to be a very good offense. Chase is awesome. Higgins is awesome. Boyd is good enough. They now have backups who can actually play a little bit. And Irv Smith maybe adds something there. Mixon can do it in the receiving game. Chase Brown is explosive. Like, you want quarterbacks and explosive offenses like this. DeAndre Hopkins, next up. Definitely a big range of outcomes because we don't know where he's going to play, right? And we don't know exactly when he's going to sign. So I like drafting him right here because there are some situations he could land on to where like he'll be worth more than this, but somewhere he's worth less. It's the same thing I talked about with Breece Hall and Tony Pollard. Like, if he goes to the Patriots, he goes to the Titans, you're probably going to have to drop him because those are not offenses you want to invest in. They're not going to be high volume passing offenses. Like, he's not going to perform up to this ranking if he lands on those teams. But there are other teams that have very good offenses that he could be, better than this spot. And so I like him right here. Wouldn't say I draft a ton of them, but I'm not against drafting him. As alluded to before, the next player, George Kittle, is not someone that I've been drafting I very much prefer TJ Hockenson. I very much prefer Mark Andrews. And then I'd rather just wait and draft someone like Darren Waller, maybe someone like David Njoku a little bit later. I don't see a reason to draft Kittle. But like I said with Deebo, maybe Purdy does unlock this offense. And if that happens, maybe we see, the old Kittle kind of return. He just blocks too well. He blocks too much. And they have too much talent in other spots to where I don't love it. I don't love George Kittle. Next up, Lamar Jackson. Basically the same thing I've been saying before. I love Mark Andrews. I love J.K. Dobbins. I love this offense. I think there's a chance Lamar Jackson finishes as the number one quarterback. It's not likely, but saying that for someone who's available in like the 5th round, means you should definitely be drafting them. Final 2 players, Dameon Pierce and Drake London. Dameon Pierce remains the running back 1 for the Texans. Singletary, I think, is overrated. You guys have heard that for years now. I don't think he's that great. Dameon Pierce is the running back 1. It's just the Texans probably aren't going to be that amazing. But if you look at, they had a lot of receptions to some scrub running backs last season that should kind of shift over towards Dameon Pierce. I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the season Pierce was a top 10 running back. He's got the talent. He's got the opportunity. If he can really separate from Singletary, a lot of upside in Pierce. And then Drake London, love the talent, hate the situation. He could literally lead the league in target share and be like a wide receiver 2, which is nuts. Someone who's capable of like a 30% target share should never be in consideration as a wide receiver 2. They just don't throw the ball. I don't think that's really going to change the season, but in round 5, I'll take him every time. Very, very confident in him in round 5. That confidence goes away a little bit in round 4, but again, round 5, awesome. So be sure to like the video. If you guys watched this far, you at least somewhat liked it if you listen to me talk for this long about top 50 players in fantasy. And be sure to subscribe. If you're new here, it's free to do so. It's just going to give you access to more of my free YouTube content. And if you want to see my exact rankings, my exact projections, and my exact rankings for every format, again, this is for half PPR. If you want tight end premium, super flex, PPR, standard, all that stuff, 6-point passing touchdown, all on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And there's also draft strategy content, draft strategy articles, whole lot more. Ton of content on the website. So check that out if you have not already. But that, my friends, is in this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button? How about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.